Okay, today is September the 4th, 2010. My name is Kim Hobbs, and will be the question answer for this interview. Sir, if I could ask you to tell us your full name.
Frederick Paul Russek.
When and where were you born?
In Schulenburg, Texas in 1917.
Which squadron were you in?
Squadron 514 Squadron.
What was life like for you during the Great Depression?
Do I?
During the 30s, when we went through the Depression, how did that affect you or your family?
The Depression?
Yes, sir.
Which one are you talking about now? I went through several of them, so I know.
The one in 1929.
We had family? Living on a farm, we had very difficult times financially. I didn't hear too much about the 1939 Depression because we didn't have radios or anything, and newspapers either. They were, San Antonio and Houston were the closest ones, and we couldn't afford to have the papers at that time. So, as far as I remember, the family, we pooled our money always. And when I was in school, before school in the morning, I would take a coaster wagon full of vegetables to town and sell them to certain people we knew. And sometimes I earned about 50 or 75 cents. And that went into the family coffer. That's the only money we had for some time.
So you were not hungry, but the family had no money?
Well, living on a farm, we had cattle and we had chickens, so we didn't go hungry, no. We always had something to eat, yes.
Did the hardships of the Depression strengthen you or build you, make you tougher before the war?
Not too much there that I can recall, other than we just didn't have the money to do things,
Where were you and what were you doing when you heard that Pearl Harbor had been attacked?
I was in the service. At the time, I was going to the Army Air Corps mechanical school, mechanic school in Shepherd Field, Texas. And it was on a Sunday morning. And when we heard about it, I just put on my clothes. I said, this may be the last day we'll be able to get off the base. So we went into town and had a little fun there that day. That's it.
When did you join the Army Air Force?
October the 3rd of 1941.
Where did you enlist at?
In San Antonio, at Port Sam, Houston, San Antonio.
What made you choose the Army Air Corps as opposed to one of the other branches?
I talked to a friend of mine, and both of us were thinking about mechanics, getting into mechanics. So that's why I was thinking of the Air Force, or the Army Air Corps rather, and a mechanic on planes.
Where did you get your different levels of training for mechanics?
Yeah, we started at Shepherd Field.
And what town was that in?
In Fort Worth, what's the name of that town?
Wichita Falls.
Can't think of the name of the town now.
Wichita Falls. Wichita Falls.
Wichita Falls.
Okay.
Yeah, from there we went to Tucson, Arizona as mechanics, but we got down there, they needed flight engineers for the bombers, and they screened us and sent us to Las Vegas to an aero gunnery school. and I went through gunnery school there in 1942. And we finished on July the 4th of 42 at Las Vegas.
That would have been Las Vegas, New Mexico?
No, Las Vegas,
Nevada.
Nevada. Can't think.
How close was your training, do you think, to prepare you for combat experience?
Well, we did aerial flying, gunnery, and we had to shoot a 30 caliber machine gun out of the back seat of a AT-6. And that was the last week of school. We were 6 weeks in school there. And that was the last week. And I got about fifth, I think, of my class as far as aerial hits is concerned. They marked them on the sock, each color, different colors of the bullets. So that's where I went. Yeah. From there, I went back to Tucson, and then was put on a crew in August of 42. And that's where the crew that I went overseas with, they were the same ones all the way through.
Were you an officer or an enlisted man?
I was an enlisted man.
And what rank?
I made buck sergeant in August of 42, and then in I think it was about September, I automatically got the staff sergeant because I had two schools in the Army, two different schools, the aerial gunnery and the mechanics. So they gave me and then in November, in Salina, Kansas, we were given, the radio operator and myself were given I made tech sergeant. And that's the rank I held through the rest of the service.
Tech sergeant.
Tech sergeant.
Which order of business kept you busier on the flights, being a gunner or being an engineer?
The engineer mostly, but it's only when we were over a target that I actually was at the gunnery position. But then when we flew over some of the missions in southern Italy, I also handled the aerial photography cameras. There was a British K-12 camera, and I had to throw them into the slipstream, hang my head over, and take the pictures at 25,000 feet. So there was not even wearing a parachute. My knees were my only protection against the side of the bar of the plane when we were doing that.
Did you, what were the strengths and weaknesses of a B-24?
What were
the strong parts or the weak parts of a B-24 plane?
Well,
in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the strong parts were speed and the altitude you could take with them. And that's the good parts. I know I can't think of any short forms.
Did you have a preference whether you would rather be flying in a B-24 or a B-17?
Yeah, definitely the 24. I rode, after I came back from overseas, I rode in a B-17 from San Antonio to Ohio, and it took us all day to get there. And B-24 would only take maybe 4 hours.
What was your first combat mission like?
First combat mission?
Yes, sir.
I was with a strange crew at that time.
Do you remember the date?
It was I'm not sure exact date. It was either late January or early February of 43. And we bombed Reggio de Calabria in the way down under Italy. And we got one engine shot out that day. While I was in doing my gunnery work there, or target, a German Messerschmitt came in, and I saw my tracers bouncing off the nose of his plane. Now, whether I hit him or not, I was a pilot, I don't know. I could see him, the skeleton of him, in the plane. That's how close he came in that day. He put 5 shells into our plane and knocked out our number 3 engine. And we flew back on 3 engines then.
What was the easiest mission that you got to be on?
I don't know if there was any easy ones. they were all tough. And when we went to altitude, we had to wear a special suit. Well, I wore long-handled underwear, and then my regular clothes, a jumpsuit on top of that, and then a sheepskin-lined suit on top of that. And when we came off the mission, I took that off. My underwear sopping wet. I know it wasn't from sweating, it was anxiety.
Did you have electrical heated suits?
No. About the last 5 missions, I had the gloves and boots of electric system. But it was under British, it was a British suit. And they used a 220 voltage on the planes, but we had 110. So it took me about 2 missions to get that change over so it would be effective on mine. In the meantime, I got my hands and toes frostbit several times. Mm-hmm.
What were the 2 or 3 toughest targets that you hated to hear?
So,
2 toughest targets that you hated to hit.
Oh, 2 targets? Well, Ploesti was one of them. The low-level Ploesti was one of them.
Ploesti, Romania?
Yeah, Ploesti, Romania. That was on August 1st of 43. And the other one, it's hard to say because they were all tough, that's the thing. When you had to go, you went. See, that was it. Yeah. I can't think of any specific one other than, well, we did fly over the harbor in Sicily several times, and that was a tough job there. And that's also when the bombardier on our crew got his lower 4 teeth shot off, and during that operation, and we had to take care of him to bring him back. And they was trying to take him into Malta at first, to the British, and we talked him into going back to our station because we had American hospital there that he would get into. And he was shipped back home after that. It was, Macmillan was his name, Lieutenant Macmillan. That's anything else?
You were on the August 1st, 1943, what was called the tidal wave mission to Ploesti, Romania, also called the low level.
Yeah, low level. And they had another name for it mentioned this morning. I forget. Huh?
Soap suds.
Soap suds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which plane?
Pardon?
Which plane were you on in that mission?
I was on the Washer's Tub. Yeah, we flew that one that day. And when we came back home from that mission, we buzzed our home base, and 2 of our engines started cutting out for lack of fuel. And I jumped back and turned the switches, gas fuel switches, to feed all. And so they picked up and we landed. We had about 5 minutes of fuel left on the plane.
Did you remember how many hours you were in the air on that?
Oh, it was around 12 hours. 12 hours that day, yeah. Incidentally, on our way over to Ploesti, we flew over Romania. And this was on a Sunday morning. And when we got to the mountain part of it, between Yugoslavia and Romania, the people, natives there, we were so low, they saw us coming. So they came out, and they were all dressed in men wore black pants and white shirt, and the women wore black skirts and white blouses. They from church, and they waved towels at us, dish towels, white dish towels to us. Said, "Thank God you're coming." Huh?
You were flying low enough to see their faces?
No, not quite. No, we couldn't see their faces because we were about 100 feet or 200 off the ground, something like that. Yeah, we were flying very low all the way. Yeah.
Do you have any particular something that stands out on that one mission? There's a whole history of the wrong turn being made, and the one group coming in and flying over another squadron?
Yeah, that was because the lead navigator of the whole operation, his plane went down in the Mediterranean about an hour or so after we took off. And so they had to take up alternate different navigators. And there were some problems on that. You know, I don't know if you want me to mention that part of it.
Just whatever you remember, sir.
Well, they took the wrong turn. We had railroad places that we were supposed to turn at. They took the first one instead of the second, and we're headed for Bucharest instead of Ploesti. And so we had to turn and go back into Ploesti. So we were out of, in other words, they're going across the wrong other flights targets. Yeah, and that's about all I know about that particular part of it. Yeah.
Were you ever wounded? Were you ever wounded?
No, thank the Lord, no. No, I wasn't.
What scared you worse, the German aircraft or the German flak?
Well, I guess the aircraft more than anything, the German aircraft. The flak, we saw it every time. When we'd fly into a target, it was a clear day. When we'd come off of it, it'd be like a black cloud all over. That's how much flak they threw up at us. And it was rough going. And just hope and prayed it wouldn't hit us. That was the main thing. Yeah.
Would the fighters mainly come from behind you, or would they come straight ahead?
No, well, they wouldn't come straight in at us. They would try to come in from the side. See? And so that's where I had to get my guns going and blast away. The thing is, too, that the guns that we had on the D model B-24s only carried a carton container of about 24 or 36 shells. And so we had to change those every time. See, you fire them once, one good burst, that was about it. And you had to put another one in and hand charge it. In my last 10 missions, I got so weak at altitude, I couldn't hand charge my gun myself. I had to call one of the other fellows to hand charge the gun for me. But we didn't say anything because I wanted to finish my missions. Because if I hadn't finished my missions, I would have put on a ground crew and I would have stayed the duration of the war, you know, with the 376. I didn't want that. Yeah.
You said on your first mission you had an engine shot down. Was that the closest you ever came to being shot down?
Yeah, that's the closest. Well, another time was when we over Sicily. I guess it was over Sicily. We had about 35 shells come through, and one of them pierced the hydraulic line. And I had to repair the hydraulic line over in open Bombay at 10,000 feet over the Mediterranean. And I received a Distinguished Flying Cross for that. And I received the second time for the Royal Ploesti. I received it twice. I saved the radio operator's life at one mission. His oxygen mask froze up. We had to drain that every so often, and he forgot to drain it. And he was going out, and I saw that. I took my pocket knife and cut the oxygen tube going to his mask and pulled the mask off his mouth and stuck it in his mouth. Well, he was going to fight me when he saw that. But after he got the oxygen, he settled back, and he was really out. He was just short of going completely out. And I was put in for the Distinguished Flying Cross at that time, but they didn't give it to me. They said it was a line of duty.
It's said that there's no atheists in foxholes. To what degree did your experience in the military or in combat affect your religious faith?
About the religion?
Did combat...
No, there was nothing ever mentioned to me about religion, other than I was told by the first co-pilot about, Jim Buck. Jim Buck came down, and we were going to a reunion in Tucson. And he stopped in Springerville. That's where we lived at that time. And he said, "Oh, Fred," he said, "I remember when it got tough. Feely and I were only ones up there on the flight deck." He said, Feely turned over to me, he said, "As long as we got Russ back there praying his rosary, he'll get us home." And I did. I said the rosary many times over there. And I carry it always in my jacket pocket. That's the closest it. There's one other thing, though, that happened. And that was the evening before the Ploesti. We didn't know that a priest was coming to have Mass for us that evening. And we had eaten supper when we found out that he was coming. And so when we went to church then about 7 o'clock that evening, I served Mass for him. And so I went to confession to him, and I told him, I said, "Father, we ate supper. We didn't know you were coming." And he said, "You go out there and tell all the boys that those that are going on a mission tomorrow, if they ate supper, they can still go to communion." And we did. We did. Thank the Lord.
What were your reasons, your first reasons for joining the military?
Well, I was getting draft notices about every other week. And I also got invitations to join the 3 different branches, Army, Navy, and I guess it's the third one somewhere. Anyway.
Marines.
Yeah. And so I talked to a friend of mine, and we were talking about becoming mechanics, and aircraft would be the best. So that's what got me to go into it. And the 1st of October, I went to Austin to talk to what do you call those fellows? Recruit. And I told him, I said, "I want to get in the Air Corps, mechanic." He said, "Well, you better hurry up then." And on the way home, we stopped in a county seat, and I went to the draft board, and I asked him, I said, "When is my number coming up?" I said, "What's your name?" I said, "Russek." "Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's your notice. Be here Monday." So this was on a Wednesday. I went home and quit my job. I was a grocery clerk at the time, and I hitchhiked to San Antonio the next morning, and that was on Thursday. On Friday, I went out to the recruiting station, and they swore me in. I was sworn in that Friday, and then so I was in before. So I was a draft dodger. Had I known it at the time, I could have taken the draft and gotten into the Army Air Corps, and I wouldn't have had to take the $21 a week for 3 months. But this way, I got the $30 anyway, right off. Okay.
How close were you with the other members of your crew? You mentioned Jim Bach and Feely.
Jim Bach. Well, the closest I was the radio operator, Charles Cannon. And we were same grade and had gone through different schools together. So we were pretty close friends there then. And although I was, communicating with all of them. Charles Wilkinson was a tail gunner on our crew. See, I'm the only one left of the whole crew alive yet today. Yeah.
Would you feel that your crew was close?
Oh, yes.
There wasn't anybody on the outside?
No.
Did you have any nicknames for any of your crew members?
Oh, yeah. They called me Russ most of the time. And then we had, let's see. First one was the assistant mechanic that I had was Gordon Cook, and we called him Cookie. He was the one that was killed on a practice mission over in Europe, in Africa, in Egypt. He broke his neck in the upper turret. And we had Fred Bond and myself took him out of the deal and put him down, and Bond gave him respiratory, and until we got to the home base, we went right on in, and the doctor came up and checked him. He said, "You can stop now, it's no use." So we buried him that afternoon over in Saluk, Egypt. No, not Egypt, it was in Libya, Saluk, Libya, in a cemetery there, and they couldn't get a bugler to come, for the funeral, so our commanding officer took up 3 of the B-24s and gave him an aerial salute, just as we were raising him into the deal. And I tell you, I still feel it hard when I hear that those planes roaring, keep from breaking out and crying. I'm soft-hearted anyway, so.
Did you feel like you had the best pilot with James Bond?
Oh, yes. Well, first Feely.
Okay.
Ed Feely was our first pilot. And he was a pilot before as a private deal. And he took us overseas and everything. He did the main flying. Jim was co-pilot at the time. And then when Feely finished his hours, he finished ahead of the rest of us. And then he was made the intelligence officer of the squadron. So he stayed over there until August of '43. And he finished in, I think it was end of June or early July. And then Jim Buck took over after that.
Moved from co-pilot to first pilot.
He became first pilot.
Do you remember who became your new co-pilot?
No, I can't recall now. I don't know why. if I get the fellow that wrote the book of all of our, he would have it on that.
Do you remember who your squadron commander was?
The first one was one of the pilots of the original crew, Halverson detachment crew that went over. Can't think of his name offhand. But then the one that flew the mission, that second low-level mission I flew on, what was his name?
It was Norm Apple.
Norm
Huh?
Apple. Norm Apple.
Norm Apple. Norm Apple was the CO of the for a while there. I know that. Trying to think of that first one's name though.
What was your opinion of Norm Apple?
Oh, he was a great guy. I really enjoyed him, and always he was very friendly and also congenial and helped you in any way you could.
Was there a lot of difference between you said Norm Apple was friendly? Did he pull rank on you? Was there a lot?
Oh no, never. They never did that. No, it was just a good feeling conversation between us, you know. And he was moved up though to another position after that too, in the group 376 bomb group.
Who was the commander of the 376 at the time that you were? Was that Keith Compton or was Keith Compton?
Thompson, K.K. Thompson.
Okay.
Yeah.
K.K. Compton?
Yeah,
Keith
he was the commander of it. And there was another one just ahead of him, but I didn't know him that well. But Compton would come when we come back from mission, he'd come and talk to us. And, we'd usually go to the mess hall and get something to eat. And he would come to our enlisted men too and talk to us about it, Yeah.
So you had a good opinion of him?
He was a very good guy, very good. We really enjoyed him, and he was the one that did the overflight for Gordon Cook when we buried him there in Saluka. Mm-hmm.
I understood that some men come back from a mission and the surgeon would give you a jigger of whiskey to help.
Not me,
wind down.
not us enlisted men. What I did though, the American Red Cross sold us. They didn't give it to us. They sold it to us. 6 bottles of beer and 6 packs of cigarettes. Well, I didn't smoke at that time, so I traded one of the fellows on the crew for the beer. They were drinking, so and it was damp. The ground was damp. We were right on the med there, and I buried my beer underneath my bunk. So when we come back, I'd have one of my beers kind of tape me down a little bit,
What were the regulations or discipline like on your base in North Africa? Or did you go on to Italy?
No, I finished before. And let's see, on August the 16th of 43, I flew my last mission. And I think they disbanded the old 9th Air Force out of Cairo about that time, somewhere right in that time. And then they were transferred into the 15th Air Force there, and headquarters of that was over in North Africa there.
What were regulations like there on your base in Benghazi, Libya? Were you in Saluk or Benghazi?
Well, Saluk was one of them stations. That was 30 miles south of Benghazi, because we couldn't get onto the base in Benghazi yet. And one in Benghazi was about 2 miles out of Benghazi itself. It was a former British base. We had a asphalt runway there. whereas the other ones were dirt runways we were using in Saluk, and also the one over in North Egypt. I forget the name of that now.
In Feetaville? Was it in Feetaville?
No, there was a different name. Can't think of it offhand. It'll be in that book that, yeah.
Were they tough on you as regulations? Did you have to salute a lot?
Oh, no. It was very informal as far as that goes. It was very informal. We didn't have to salute the officers. You know, when we were around there, if you were out in full uniform, why, you was given that. But other than that, no, we didn't. Just call them lieutenant or whatever, you know.
What did you do for recreation when you weren't flying?
Sleep or go swimming in the Mediterranean. That was about it. We had, when we were at Benghazi, the NCO opened a bar there. They had gone to Cairo and brought back some liquor and stuff, and we had a bar there, and we could get a drink or beer, and we played some blackjack, no?
I don't know.
Poker?
Poker, not poker, the other.
Gin?
Hmm?
Played gin rum? But you played cards?
Blackjack.
Okay.
Blackjack.
Do you have one episode that makes you smile when you weren't in combat that you remember was kind of funny?
Did you have anything that made you laugh when you were not in combat?
Oh, not in combat?
Yeah.
Not too much. We just had to sleep and get ready, and then usually we got about 2 or 3 days off between missions. Sometimes it was a little bit longer, but usually it was about 3 days between missions.
You described your clothes, your suit that you wore. Can you describe any other equipment, where you normally stood most of the time to be a flight engineer? What did your
There
station?
was no distinction as far as between the airmen. You didn't show anything that would show you that, other than only if you had a dress uniform, you had a motor patch on your deal here. That was the only thing that defined you as a mechanic.
Okay. While you were on the plane, were you checking gauges or checking fuel level or doing all those constantly?
Well, I never wore a parachute. I flew over 800 hours on a B-24 and never wore a parachute. The only time when I didn't even wear it, I just carried from when we flew it at 17 from San Antonio to Ohio. But we wore the harness, you know, when we get close off to the target. We'd have on our heavy clothes and wore a harness, and my chute was hanging next to my position on the wall of the plane. And I would have put it on if we needed to. It was a chest chute, so it was, not a seat chute.
Did you said over the Ploesti mission that you flew over and you could actually see the people waving at you?
Yeah, that was a neighboring country, Yugoslavia there, see? Yeah.
Did you have any doubts or any second thoughts about flying over civilians, or that you?
Oh, no. No. The only thing we were very cautious of was never to bomb civilians whenever we went to a bomb run. Now, we were told rather to drop the bombs early rather than late and go in and hit the civilians. See? That was the only thing that was. The British were different than that, I know.
You said you could actually see the outline of the German pilot in that Messerschmitt when he went by.
Yeah.
Did you have any feelings towards the
No,
Germans?
I just had to fire. That was it. Self-preservation is the only thing that kept you going. You have to keep going. Now, one thing that our, not Burton, but Compton told us, he said, if they bail out and they're going down, you know, out of Messerschmitt, for instance, we have to shoot the man. Because when he lands, he's going to get another plane to come after you. See, that was the order we were given. That's the hardest order I think I ever got. Mm-hmm. But I would have carried it out if necessary, you know. But didn't have to.
Didn't have to. Did you write any letters home during the war? You wrote to your family?
Find what?
Did you write any letters to your
Oh,
family?
yeah. I wrote to my folks pretty regularly. And I tried to do it maybe once a week or something like that. And we got email from them whenever we get through, you know. It depends. I had one of the email letters that I sent home, too. And I don't know what I did with that now.
It's in your stuff.
Do you remember what you wrote about? I mean, you couldn't.
Well, we
you
couldn't tell
mention-
them where we were located. But we could mention certain things that they would hear on the radio.
Okay.
See, certain things, and we tried to stay as close to as possible, but not to have it cut out, because our letters were monitored. They were checked over before they were sent out.
How often did you receive a letter from home?
I don't remember exactly, but I guess it could have been about 2 or 3 a month, maybe. Mm-hmm.
Where were you when you heard that the war in Europe was over?
But I was out of the service then already. I was discharged before the war was over on medical. In April of 45, I got my discharge. Okay. And I was, let's see, we were in San Antonio at the time. I was working for the Army Air Corps there as a mechanic, and as a civilian then. And I don't have too many memories of it other than we couldn't go downtown because we had an invitation to a birthday party that day. So, because they had big celebrations in downtown part of San Antonio, I know that. Mm-hmm.
Was the celebration any bigger for the war in Europe than it was for the victory in Japan?
I don't think so. I don't think the war in Europe was that great. You know, the Japanese one was August the 15th of 45 was the bigger one. You know, mm-hmm. That was a big event. Stopped all operations. You know, yeah.
Do you consider yourself a hero for your service in the Air Corps?
No, I did what I had to, and that was it. You know, I couldn't say it. I know people mention it, but then I said, no, I only did my duty, and that was it, you know. Mm-hmm.
Well, you got out of the Army Air Corps but stayed working as a civilian. What did you do after the war?
I was a mechanic at that time. I did that until my back got so bad I couldn't continue working as a mechanic. And then I went back to school. I went back to college to get my degree. And it was the reason I went and did that was to keep food on the table for the family. You know, I had 2 children by then, and it was a means of support.
So you went to college on the GI Bill?
Yes,
That's what they call it?
the GI Bill, yes.
And got married after you returned from the war?
You were married while you were in the war, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in the service, I was married. I got married in Tucson when I was the second time I was there as a mechanic. I was working on the ground there, but it didn't last very long because the heat, and it affected my stomach, and I was in the hospital then from then on. In latter part of August of 44 till April of 45 when I was discharged. I was in the hospital all that time.
How did your working career, you stayed a mechanic and?
Well, until I went to school. Then I got my degree in accounting. And from there, I received it at Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona. I got my bachelor's degree there as an accountant. And I worked for the dean of the college for a while in the town of Casa Grande as managing the office part of it, finances. And he was a partner in it. And the working partner that was running the operation liked the bottle too well. And after about 2 years, I recommended to the dean of the college to sell out. And before I left the company, he came down from Tempe to Casa Grande, and they made an agreement there to sell it to one of the partners. And I left then and went to a different company to work.
Let's see. To go back to your, as a flight engineer, where was your station on the plane? Where did you spend most of your time in flight?
Well, most of the time I was right in back of the pilot and co-pilot, right between them.
Okay.
There was no seat there, I had to stand and watch the instruments and also watch the deal. Because I don't know why, but I was able to pick up planes or other objects in the air before the pilot or co-pilot could. I wore glasses, but I didn't need to. I had 20/20 vision, but I had for cross-stigmatism. There's my eyes, and it would give me a headache, and so I wore glasses. And incidentally, when I walked down the street in San Antonio one time, some guy walked up, "You can't wear those glasses and wear those, wings." I said, "Yes, I can. I can prove it to you." So, okay, that was.
You said on that one mission that you had to repair a hydraulic line. What did you have to make the repairs and to keep
The
the
main
plane in
thing
the air?
was a pair of pliers, tape it, you get in position to tape it, and
A very good rope.
we were 10,000 feet over the mid when I was doing that, and I didn't have a parachute on over an open bomb bay. The only thing I had was a rope across my waist to keep me, and I had to reach all the way across to work on it. See, the bomb bay door was bradded open. When the flak came through, it bradded the door open, we couldn't get it closed. And so that's why I had to do it.
So your toolbox to keep this plane in the air was a
Oh
pair
yeah,
of
I always
pliers?
carried my toolbox with me.
Okay.
I had certain tools in there that I needed or used or could use if it needed to. And of course, I always carried my pocket knife. That was the main thing. Yeah.
And you said that you were also a gunner. Now, which machine gun did you man?
I managed the right rear machine gun out the waist.
Okay.
I had to travel through the gang, the gangplank, between the bomb bay to get back there always. And you couldn't wear a parachute going through there. There was just no room. There was barely room to get through, So
Now that was a single 50 caliber that you
yeah, it was a 50 caliber single. Yeah. And we had 3 different types of shells on it. We had a tracer, armor piercing, and they call it ignition deal. If it hit, it burst up and caused flames, caused fire. And it was the 3 different shells.
Did you, you said that you saw the bullets hit the front of the plane?
The spinner part of the plane, I saw my tracer bouncing off of that. So I put it somewhere close to the pilot. I don't know if it hit him or not. I don't know.
Were you ever given credit for shooting down a plane?
No. No, you had to be positive as you did it before they give you credit for it. And you have some witnesses to tell you. Mm-hmm.
You said they would come in at the side of the plane?
Usually they would come in at the side, yes. Because head on, they would break away if they did at altitude. That's the reason we flew at low level. There was no breakaway for the fighters. They would have had to go out this way, see. And so that was one of the reasons for the low level. And of course, the other one, the low level we flew to Sicily, that was because to skip the bombs underneath the deal to try to blow it out, because they couldn't penetrate the cement that they had over the fair slips. They would bring the supplies down by train, bring them across on a ferry, and go underneath the steel and unload it into the trucks or whatever they had in Sicily. That's where they brought the supplies down.
Were you successful at your skip bomb?
Well, no, we couldn't do it because it was fogged in that day. And we took an alternate target and bombed the plant at Crotone, Italy. And that's where we had to pull up to get over a 3-story building. Norm Apple was the pilot for that plane. Yeah.
Well, if you had a grandson and he asked you a question about the war, if you were going to put down in a couple of sentences what's your thoughts about your service in the Second World War to a young fellow that didn't have any idea what you'd gone through and what it was like, what would you tell him?
I have one grandson. I don't know. I never did talk to him about that part of it. I had a granddaughter, though, that wanted the information about it, and they made a tape of it, and she took it to school with her, in school. So. Mm-hmm.
How many years have you been coming to these group reunions?
The first one I went to was in, I think it was the late 60s. The one in Ohio, there where's the Air Force Museum?
Wright-Patterson in Dayton, Ohio?
Dayton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio. There's my first one. And I enjoyed it right away, That's where we were there on the weekend. And so we went to church on Saturday night. And that's where those fellows got in back of me. I heard them talking. I looked back. And they said, "You're the guy that told us we could go to communion." Yeah, he was from Illinois, just north of Chicago. And I don't know exactly. And his name I don't remember either. But I saw him quite a few times after that, you know.
Well, you've been coming to these reunions since 1960?
Pardon?
I say you've been coming to these reunions since 1960?
Well, other than a few that I just couldn't make, you know, but I've been going to most of them, yeah.
Well, we're glad that you came today, and we thank you for your service, and we
Okay.
thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay.